I just can't let you go. Lord knows that I've tried to. You said I was the only one. No one likes being lied to. You made this mess and left me with the pieces. Now I wanna burn all the bridges between us. I can't focus, I can't forget. I've been thinking too much lately. I just need to clear my head. I just need to clear my head. I've been stuck on your memory, but it's not like I need it. And we may have some history, but we don't have to repeat it. You made this mess and left me with the pieces. Now I'm gonna burn all the bridges between us. I can't focus, I can't forget. I've been thinking too much lately. I just need to clear my head. 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 I just need to. I just need to clear my head. I just need to. I just need to clear my head. I just need to. I just need to clear my head. I just need to. I just need to clear my head. I can't focus, I can't forget. I've been thinking too much lately. I just need to clear my head. Oh, clear my head. I just need to clear my head. I just need to clear my head. Sometimes when you're here, I can feel no doubts, 'cause you keep me where the stars are found. It doesn't really matter, 'cause you're here with me now. It doesn't really matter. It doesn't really matter, 'cause you're here with me now. It doesn't really matter, 'cause I feel so free now. It doesn't really matter.
Hello everybody and welcome back to the Sunday GT Masters Series, and welcome back into the commentary box. Hasse Rømer alongside me, joining me once again for another brilliant night's worth of racing. We have come back from Asia and we are here in it's the place to be, Hasse, in my opinion. Sure, I might be slightly biased, but Silverstone, a brilliant circuit and well worth a visit, and I'm so glad we've got it on the calendar. So like I say, here at the beautiful Silverstone circuit, a good mix of fast corners, slow corners, straights, everything in between, and with the BOP of iRacing getting ever closer in the GT3s, we're in for one brilliant night worth of racing, Hasse.
Indeed we are, Jack. Thank you once again for joining, or letting me join, rather, in the booth. And indeed, and especially with the racing that we've already had on display, I think we're in for another good one. There is really nothing to suggest that we aren't going to be in for a good race. I really look forward to it. This is another one of those tracks that lends itself so well to GT racing. We've seen it in the real life. We've seen it in the world of iRacing before. And I'm quite sure tonight we're going to see it again here at Silverstone.
Yeah, definitely lots to look forward to. Whilst we're here, let's pick up on the championship points. Cody Steig leading the AM class ahead of Giambattista Giacetti for Team Gabbiano on 71 points. Then it's Sander Kaffer in third, followed by Stuart Jacklin and Matt Sisseler rounding out your top five on a nice round 50 points. Then it's Matthew Maddox, Robert van den Heuvel, Chris Pio, Craig Thompson, Sandro Orsini rounding out the top 10. Following suit, Alfredo Chukwueze, Arkan Kolak. Then we get back to Sean Nicholson, Stephen Orrell, Savino Melillo, Aidikan Ataberg, Gaston Bori and Timo Paya in 18th place. And then a little further down, we get back to Ari Sherwood, Khan Bardak, EJ Fjellner, Federico Carli, Emmanuel Lucioli, Damien Kober, Dirk Reski, Lee Tucker, Niels Cornelis, and Ryan Donaher down at the bottom end of the order. And I'll hand you over to Hasse to run you through the pro standings.
Yes, indeed. And in the pros, it's Matthew Forrest in third. I think we'll need a quick flick up the order to not do what I did last week. Chris Boland leading the championships, just 2 points ahead of Nicolas Kocato, who's been doing very, very well indeed this season so far. Matthew Forrest, our reigning champ in the pro ranks, is third so far. So a little out of luck here. He'll be hoping for better wins in his back for the remainder of the season. Martin de Jong fourth, ahead of Nuno Vinagre, who rounds off the top five. It's then Cesar Prosen, Rui Felipe, and Gaston Maceroni, with Timothy van der Broek and Chris Roberts in 10th, ahead of Jorge Pinheiro, Remco Barlow, Jotze Skilj, and Valdez Suarez in 14th place, having picked up points. Bruno Guedes in 15th, ahead of Cone Mulder, Nick McLaughlin, and Eric Luke in 18th. And that is the last of the point scorers with Nick McLaughlin there. Eric Luke, Pedro Marimon, and Pete Plastow to pick up a point there.
I've got a feeling that when I inverted the points from the previous round, they decided to apply to the drivers alphabetically instead of their previous positions. So maybe a mistake on my side, but we do have team standings, and I double checked these ones because these ones confused me as well, but I think I only picked up on the team standings. But Virtua Racing, 121 points, leading SR Technic 114. Block It Like It's Hot is 87, as there's tyre smoke in the background, so you'd expect somebody's had a bit of a moment through Cop's Corner. CB Racing, formerly RAFE Motorsports, on 79 points on 4th place. Then it's Apex Tech Racing 4, followed by Still There Racing Team. Then it's VRC Red, followed by Apex Tech 2, and then VRC Blue sat there in 9th place. And rounding out your top 10, it's Team Gabbiano. Then it's Easy Racing, RaceTrackNotes.app, followed by the Rat Pack, Apex Tech 1, Stage 1 Racing, and Apex Tech 3 in 16th place. But we do have on-track action. Let's go and have a look at that. I'm going to leave you in the capable hands of Hasse, whilst I try and fix a slight technical issue I'm having on my end. And as luck would have it, Hasse, just as the session late into qualifying, you'll be able to run everybody through the qualifying session.
Perfect as it is, we usually see everybody streaming out the pits. We'll see a long line of cars coming out here onto the track for 15 minutes of qualifying. And it's really all about track space and utilizing track space when you can and being on point to set up your lap at the perfect time. But of course, with a evolving track, it's sometimes a little bit difficult to have the perfect track at the perfectly opportune time, and as such, qualifying can sometimes be something that will throw a little bit of a surprise. We've seen in practice here both the Audis and the Lamborghinis looking very, very strong here. It'll be up to the rest of the field to be on the charge here. Martin de Jong in chat calling out for up forward on the podium. Might he be the one to do it here at Silverstone? You never know. Indeed, Matt Sisseler, of course, a driver who's done his fair share of time in the Ford GT. So is Chris Pio. And our very own Jack Werrell, very much so as well. By the way, of course, 15 minutes of qualifying, followed by 45 minutes of racing. And we'll have a pit stop around the half-hour mark. That's how it usually goes, at least, with the 50% fuel cap that's in place. And I do believe we are in for my failing memory. Is it open or fixed, this one? Someone in chat will tell me in 5, 4, 3, probably not. But it'll be quick before someone in chat will be able to tell me, you, and everybody else whether this is a fixed or an open setup round, because such is the nature of the series that we have an alternating sort of schedule going. Looked like a VRC Ferrari blinking. Could have been Pete Plastow. Here is Jutse Skuli. It's open. Thank you to Sean Nicholson. Being quick on the fingertips indeed. And as that was just how I remembered it as well. So to go back to the old trusted Star Wars quote, you do have to trust your feelings and your instincts sometimes. Very much in racing as well. But open setups, let's see what that changes to the dynamics of racing from what we saw last time out. But indeed, Audi and Lamborghini, who do share so much of their platform, looking very, very strong yet again on the lap times. Though at the moment we're still waiting for the first flying lap to come through. Here is Nicolas Kocato, a driver we've seen quite a bit of here as of late, and I'm expecting good things again from the Argentine driver of Virtua Racing in the 02 machine. Mind you, he joined in sort of midway in through last season. As such, he was never really able to challenge for the overall title, but he certainly picked up a lot of experience regarding just how the series works, and he's been very competitive from the get-go this season, and looks to be a title contender if he can keep that shape up for the remainder of the season. Of course, he'll be in a very good position indeed. Matthew Forrest with our first flying lap and a benchmark for everybody else to hit. That's a 1:58.6. And you'll see the lap times streaming in now, 5 minutes into the session. That's of course with the slow out lap and then coming around. And then again, 15 minutes of qualifying seems like, oh, and someone's gone heavily into the barrier there. And I'm not quite sure just who that was. I think that might have been either Matt Sisseler or Chris Pio, or both of them involved. This is Alfredo Tricarici. He's got Gaston Meseroni behind him there, and Meseroni has done a very, very good lap to take provisional pole. We'll probably see the cars pushing into the 157s. I would not be surprised, but it is indeed Audi leading ahead of Lamborghini. Then Remco Barlow in the BMW with a 158.7, and leading in AM at the moment, also AM Class Championship leader Cody Steeg in the Mercedes, who was mixing it in so well as well last time around with the pros. the Hungarian. And when we spoke to him post-race, it might have been a little bit unexpected that he was up there, but he took it very coolly. Got a great result out of it as well. And it is indeed sitting pretty there in the standings, and we'll see if he can keep his shape up for the rest of the season. He'll be looking very, very good for an overall title contender indeed. Looking at the Apex Tech Racing Porsche here of Jotze School, he'll have to navigate this traffic, and this is what I mentioned on earlier as well. Once you get really close to the car ahead, it's very hard not to feel a little bit impeded, and physically so you will be if there's a speed difference that's it's big enough at Sander Kaffer ahead in the Plug It Like It's Hot Ferrari. And therefore also I think we often see drivers sort of go to the side of the road and slow down. To find that track space. A few cars peeling off. That'll be the halfway marker of the session. They would have had their 3-4 laps of fuel in the car. They would have done exactly that. And now pulling off for a second run. Sander Kaffer, Alfredo Tricorici, and I wonder if that is Pete Plastow in between and behind of this trio of cars leaving the pit lane. That is Pete Plastow's Ferrari. Plastow currently 10th in qualifying. He will be hoping he can somehow increase his pace to increase his starting position. I don't necessarily think it'll be a sort of doomed to be back there at the start while Sander Kaffer goes a little bit wide. I have to wonder if that's wide enough for him to have an issue with it. Of course, it is on the out lap as Tricorici goes on by. Alfredo Tricorici currently 13th. But sitting in what is provisionally 4th in the AM class standings. That's certainly not too bad at all. Giambattista Giachetti has done a very good provisionally 8th, second in class. And there Matt Sissler and a quick glimpse of Martin de Jong. And even Silverstone, so taking a relatively large Grand Prix track into account here, with 30 cars on grid, we see plenty of traffic out there, and it isn't just all so simple finding a space. Look at Martin de Jong in the background there. He slowed down very heavily in order to just try and give himself the space to get in a good lap. Now that was Chris Boland and Nicolas Kocato around him, the two drivers who we will be expecting to see at the front of affairs. Boland and then Kokato's Audi. Boland especially though in the RAF E Motorsports 86 Lamborghini. Let's see what he does.
Now going through Maggots and Beckett's with working iRacing is the rest of the qualifying session, Hasse.
Yes, indeed. Good to have Jack Werrell back on the connection. Here's Gaston Maceroni. And he set a new fastest lap, 1:58.078. Or I wonder if that's the lap he did all that time ago. No, that was indeed...
His most recent one. 3 laps on lap 3.
No, his most recent one was just 200ths of a second slower than that. So close, but not close enough for Gaston Maceroni to improve upon his time. And there goes Kocato, though. Kocato just sneaks into second place. Again, provisional second place, Jack, but it's up there where we expected to see Nicolas Kocato.
Yeah, absolutely. He's one of those drivers, incredibly consistent, much like his Virtual Racing teammate Gaston Maceroni. Matthew Forrest does improve, 1:58.629. Although, while he has improved on the timesheets, it hasn't improved his position. Remco Barlow working his way towards the old start-finish line. Who have we got very shortly coming across the line? Martin Dion in one of the 4 GTs crossing line now. Does he improve? 1:58.823 to beat. Potentially an outlap, potentially a dirty lap through turn 1. Full commitment through there, Hasse. You could see the car dancing around on the very edge of adhesion there again, and it's one of those cars, as much as I miss driving it so much, because you can get away with a lot in that car. You can throw it sideways and catch it. There's a point. It's like on the very edge of adhesion. As soon as you push it past the limit of mechanical and aerodynamic grip, you're on a one-way train to pointing the wrong way. But at the moment, Martin Dion, every single round, he's always up there, and he's only getting quicker. And I think if he keeps doing what he's doing, whilst outright pace might not be up there, he's so consistent with his finishes. He can constantly score points, and I'm looking forward to seeing how the end of the season shapes up points-wise.
That's going to be an interesting one. It's worked out before, especially last season, where he really picked up form in the second half of the season. Let's see how it goes with the 4 GT in the hands of Martin de Jong. 6th place here, currently not that bad at all. He is 8/10 down on our current pole sitter. However, Jack, that lap from Maceroni has smashed the field so far. And that's 4/10 of a second, a little bit more even, between himself and teammate Nicolas Kocato. And then everyone else following in very close order after that.
Yeah, you can see there Chris Boland going for another push lap, trying to work his way in towards the top 5. And a mistake early on left him in 6th. He abandoned the lap, make that 7th. Josef Skuj has just crossed the line and improved his position, now up into 6th place. 1:58.653 from him. Not a million miles away from another positional gain. Matthew Forrest less than, what, half a tenth up the road. Almost a quarter of a tenth. But yeah, I see what you mean. Gaston Maceroni, almost half a second clear. That's such a good lap. At the moment, the fastest AM out on circuit, Cody Steig, the 555 Mercedes. It's a very good lap from himself as well, a 1:59.132, abandoning his lap, easy for me to say. Pete Plasto still with time to find. Lee Tucker currently sat in provisional P3. Apex Tech is one of those teams, again, no matter where you look, they're always getting their elbows out. They're either in a battle, they're either, even in qualifying, they're just there or thereabouts, constantly pushing for that extra little bit of time. Under the bridge we go, down the hanger straight. Can Lee Tucker improve upon his position? Let's have a quick look. He set a personal best sector 3, not a million miles off a sector 2. So we'll see what he can do. That's very wide. Was that a 1X? I think it would have been very close to the limit if it wasn't. Through the chicane we go, avoiding those big sausage curbs. And then through the final corner now. Keep the car balanced through the right-hander. Just crests at the apex, and that sausage curb pass. So the one I mentioned just a few seconds ago. Forced the car wide, and that's a 1X. No further improvement as the checkered flag comes out.
But it's going to be a good session altogether for Lee Tucker. I think it's going to be a second consecutive class-leading position for Cody Steig leading into the race. And a second consecutive overall top 10 in qualifying for him as well. Matthew Forrest just about sneaking into the top 5, it seems, because he still has this lap to finish on, Jack. There might just be improvements to be made.
Oh,
And there is! Very much so there, Matthew Forrest, second fastest at the edge of the rope there. Kocato, let's see what he can do, man. I don't think that's going to be an improvement for Nicolas Kocato as far as I'm aware.
time-wise, yes, but positional, no. The iRacing invisible wall catching him out there. Who have we next got to cross the line? Let's have a quick look. Chris Pio has decided to abandon this lap. There is Chris Roberts. He will be heading on towards the hangar straight now. We'll be seeing improvement from him, I'm not 100% sure. Cohen Mulder yet to set a lap. Will he be able to do so behind the wheel of that Lamborghini? Of course, Cohen Mulder, Season 1, Season 2 in a Ferrari. What can he do here in the Lamborghini? Towards the final chicane we go. Very functional, but quite a pretty livery on that Lamborghini. Gold at the front, fades towards a black. And then through the final corner, do we see an improvement in the Lamborghini? All of the track being used. It can't be an improvement. It has to be a time set for him. He does set a time, but I'm afraid that's 1.3 seconds away from getting himself in towards a position. Chris Roberts does improve a 2-minute 0.276. He stays in 22nd place. Alfredo Triccarici, last-minute improvement, up into 12th overall, third in class. Virtua Racing tonight, they're looking a very, very tricky team to beat.
A handy outfit, you must say, Jack. But that's been the case throughout the opening 3 races of this season so far. So really no surprise by now to see that Virtua Racing is really bringing it to Virtual Racing Compound as well, in terms of the team throne at the moment in the Sunday GT Masters here. And with that said, I think we're at the end of the qualifying session. It should not be long before we have the grid order up on screen for Jack to go through.
Yep, so we'll just have to wait for the session to tick over, which will be in about 7 seconds time if it switches over at bang on the 18-minute mark. There's no further drivers out on the grid, or out on the circuit, I should say. We've passed the 18-minute mark, and there we go. So it is now time to run you through the grid. On pole position, Gaston Maceroni, a 1 minute 58.078, almost 3/10 back is Matthew Forrest. Nicolas Kocato as Jorge Pinheiro for company on row 2 of the grid. Row 3 is made up of Remco Barlow and Jose Skurge. Then we get back to Chris Boland and Martin Dion. Cody Steig, your AM-class pole sitter, in front of Pete Plasto in 10th. Then we get back to Giambattista Giacetti and Alfredo Triccarici. We'll go down another few rows and we get to Nuno Vinagre, Lee Tucker, Sander Kaffer, Matt Sisseler, Idakan Atterberg, Orkan Kolak, Stephen Orrell, Craig Thompson, Stuart Jacklin, Chris Roberts, Ari Sherwood and Sandro Orsini. And the final few rows made up of Chris Pio, Matthew Maddox, Robert van der Heuvel, Cohen Mulder and Gaston Bori and Savino Melillo. Didn't set times in qualifying, but 30 cars on the grid here at Silverstone, Hasse. And it's shaping up to be yet another brilliant race.
Well, it is indeed, and we're very, very close to getting it underway. Yet another of the beautifully short warm-up laps, if you can even call it that. It's a partial bit, the last quarter of the lap or whatever it is. It's just about enough to get a feel for the machine. It's also more than enough. Especially taking into consideration that at a track like the Nordschleife, it's certainly not a quarter of the track. It's the last 2% of the track that you have to do. And it'll save you a lot of time in the end. Jack, we've got 45 minutes of racing ahead of it. And indeed, I think it's going to be a good one here tonight.
Yes, it's definitely shaping up to be that way. We're just waiting for Nicolas Kocato to take to the grid, as well as Savino Melillo towards the tail end of the grid. Whether he's starting from the pit lane, I don't know. Looks like he is, because as soon as Nicolas Kocato takes to the grid, we will be going racing. You can see the lights up at the top of the screen, so just waiting for the safety car to pull away, which they do now. And then as the drivers get whatever temperature they can into the tyres, into the brakes, with it being an open setup as well, as it is an even numbered round, Hasse. That's the one thing we have to take into consideration. When it's a fixed setup, obviously, whilst the racing is close, and probably closer than we ever normally see it, the open setup, that is what can make or break your race. And especially here at Silverstone, with a circuit that's got so many different dynamics, setup can make a huge difference. And it's clearly working for Gaston Boré. Like we saw, or Gaston Maceroni, I should say, putting it on pole position. And he's gone very early. He's already gone, Hasse. Before we even get to the final corner, Gaston Maceroni has put his foot to the floor. We do go racing here at Silverstone for the first time this evening. Matthew Forrest managed to get away in second place. Nicolas Kocato maintaining his third. Chris Boland up 2 places. Yes, secured 2 places. Round the outside at turn 1. Almost contact in the background. Incredible bravery, incredible commitment from Chris Boland, and making his intentions known very early on. 2 places in the space of 1 corner.
Absolutely. Oh, that's almost contact there. I think that might have been Martin de Jong who got caught out, and there's a massive calamity further down the field, I'm afraid. Chiacchezzi's been caught out in it in the 541 Ferrari. He's not alone though. Matt Sisseler's tumbling down the order. Sabino Melilo's out, I'm afraid. Oh, look at that. Sandro Ossini gets the touch as well, and he's in the barrier.
It's all gone
Major
wrong.
damage.
All gone wrong. Look at all of the traffic coming in towards the stadium section of the circuit. There was lots of contact. Obviously, it's the last thing we want to see. But it's such a tight, twisty, technical section of the circuit. 30 cars. It would be unlikely that all of them get through without contact. But it's such a shame that 2 Gabino cars have been put towards the tail end of the order, potentially one towards retirement. But at the moment, we are still running, still leading the way. Gaston Maceroni, half a second clear of Matthew Forrest already, who's 1.5 seconds clear of Nicolas Kocato. Then we get back to Jorge Pinheiro. Chris Boland already setting his intentions towards the podium. You can see he's more than safely in towards the top 5, almost a second clear of Remco Barlow. I've got to say that move at turn 1 was still absolutely brilliant. Skulj sat there in second place, Martin de Jong in 8th, Cody Steig in 9th. We'll have a look at who's gained and who's lost at the moment. Arkan Kolak up 6 places, and we haven't even completed the first lap, so the 666 Lamborghini really pushing forward now. A little further back you can see who the big losers are. Sander Kappa potentially with another incident, dropping right down the order. He's pulled out towards the right hand side of the circuit. Heavy damage on that car, but fastest lap of the race of course for Gaston Maceroni. Almost 4 tenths quicker than Matthew Forrest's opening lap.
He's absolutely flying at the moment, but it also seemed like Matthew Forrest has done a pretty good job of closing down the gap, and they've done a good job in turn of extending the gap down to Kocato and Jorge Pinheiro in the SR Technique Lamborghini, who kind of flew under the radar in qualifying to a very, very good grid position. Yet again, SR Technique, another one of the front-running teams, you really have to say, this season. Maceroni so far in the 48 car leading, but Matthew Forrest seems to be getting closer and closer to me, at least, Jack, through the technical middle sector of the track. And then the Audi doing a good job of stretching its legs. You gotta wonder if it's gonna be enough for Maceroni to hold on to it here. Cody Steig with Pete Plastow just ahead, and it's Nuno Vinagre in the, I think, 22 Porsche there, just in behind. And something interesting here, Jack. Earlier in the season, it seemed we saw the AM drivers more or less pulling off for the pro drivers, but there is also a team championship to be fought for there, and Cody Steig doesn't seem so keen on giving his place here to Nuno Vinagre.
No, not at all. He is definitely ready to battle, and he's ready to defend where necessary. Forcing up the inside, I think, was Nuno Vinagre. He gave it a look, just allowed Cody Steig to run wide. Somehow Cody managed to keep that momentum all the way around the outside and somewhat extend that margin as well. So good driving so far. Nicolas Kocato has closed in on the top 2, so that's 3 for the lead now. Within a second, 3 drivers, and it's Jorge Pinheiro sat there in 4th place. Chris Boland still doing what he can to stick with the lead drivers. Closest cars we have out on circuit, Hasse, quite a way down the order. Matt Sisseler and Chris Paio by the looks of it. So there is Chris Paio in the Ford GT. Then we get back to Matt Sisseler. Not too far away is Sander Kappa. So these 3 cars absolutely nose to tail.
Yeah, it has to be said. And Seam Sizzler is indeed running a bit of damage from that lap 1 incident. So that's Sander Caffert just having a look up the inside, but not really able to make more of it. And of course, Chris Pugh, the Ford GT veteran, up ahead, having seemingly at least snuck his way through. And I wonder, Martin de Jong, exactly what happened to him. We haven't seen anything from it or anything, but he's in 21st place. And here comes... Oh, he doesn't enjoy that for one bit, does he? Doesn't seem like it's the only problem you've had here, Jack, because he's already at this point, it seems, somewhat further down the order than he was when we saw him around 8th place early days. Here's another situation for Martin de Jong that looks a little bit more like the original culprit of his incident. Oh, and he's facing the wrong way. Oh, and he's found reverse and almost made contact.
That was Chris Boland.
Was that Chris Boland or was that Giambattista Giacchetti? I thought that was Giacchetti.
It was Håkan Kolak by the looks of that.
No, it's Håkan Kolak, of
Yeah.
course it was. Absolutely so. Brilliantly spotted, Jack. The 666. The Lambo of the Beasts.
Just looking at the
With
moment.
Hell and Fire going to be released. I think that's sort of how the lyrics go. It's a favorite
like
song
that.
of mine, but I also have to admit, I don't spend that much time listening to the lyrics when I listen to Iron Maiden.
I've got to say, it's shaping up to be a very, very entertaining race. But that lead gap, Hasse, where has that come from? 1.6, closing up on 1.7 seconds now. I can't think it would be a mistake from Matthew Forrest because the gap between himself and Nicolas Kocato has remained the same. Jorge Pinheiro is knocking on the door of the podium places. Chris Boland not too far adrift. Remco Barlow still sat there in the highest place BMW. But at the moment, the top 5 all are mid-engined, rear-wheel drive cars, so Audis or Lamborghinis.
Yeah, and they're based on very similar platforms. They have very similar engines, if not more than very similar engines. You can even hear it on the machinery when they plow on past. And it's certainly a formula that works here at Silverstone, and it's worked so far this season. They have been the two machines, just that slight edge on the rest of the pack, it seems. Remco Barlow, doing a pretty good job of keeping BMW and Porsche in the mix. A very good job so far from Messeroni out ahead to plow clear that advantage. It's up to, well, it's still 1.7 seconds. And then Nicolas Kocato staying in there as well, but he's kept honest. Very much so by Jorge Pinheiro here. Chris Pio, Jack, having to give up his position to, I think, Sander Caffert. Just squeezes around on the outside, and someone is facing the wrong way. The 555 of Cody Steeg, AM-Class Championship leader here, Jack. Lost a lot of places. He's some way down the order here. Wonder if we could figure out just what happened to Cody.
And we'll have a look through to try and figure out how that happened. So it looks like we've found it here. So it is one of the Virtua Racing Audis that managed to pick him up. Yes, it was Trickerici. Well spotted, Hasse, and that left Cody Steig pointing the wrong way. Of course, he wants to grab reverse, but he also doesn't want to use reverse. In a race car, he's supposed to be going forwards and not having to use reverse, but he was nice and patient and rejoined the circuit as safely as possible. But that has left him right the way down the order, 22nd overall, still only 10th in class, but a lot of driving to do. 18 seconds up the road now to our new AM-Class leader of Håkan Kolak. And behind him he has Craig Thompson in the VRC blue Ferrari, who has been another driver that we've got to keep an eye out on. I think he's just slowly been improving. His racecraft has really started to pick up and he's getting quicker and quicker, and at the moment he's sat in second place, not too far away from first. He's got Alfredo Trickerici behind, but obviously that little incident earlier on might be playing on his mind. It will be tricky to forget about. Obviously if you've gone for a move, and whether it was intentional or not, and you've made that mistake, it's something you're so careful of. You give the other cars an extra couple of widths for the rest of the race, purely out of not sure whether it's guilt or not wanting to make the same mistake, and that can in turn take away from your race. At the moment, we're now seeing a change of position in the background, side by side. Martin Dion in the Ford on the left, and it was Matthew Maddox in the Porsche on the right, but Matthew Maddox losing that place before even the braking zone. Up the road, close together, Stuart Jacklin, Chris Roberts. Don't really know where to look, Hasse. It's all going on.
Yeah, and it's as we touched upon last time out, Browering as well, because that's what we saw, and we've been seeing it basically every race so far this season, that the new edition of the Pro and Am classes just has given us so much more to look at, basically, and so much more that's actually worth something in the race in terms of points for the Am standings as well. In what would normally be the sort of I wouldn't call it the meaningless midfield, but it's sort of, you know, when you're in there as a driver, it feels like there's a little more motivation to go for there, and a little bit of indecisiveness as Chris Roberts is coming in on the inside. He's going to go through on Stuart Jacklin to take overall 13th place. He's been coming from relatively far back there, Chris Roberts, so a nice drive from him as well so far. There's been a lot of chaos, though, early days in this race to negotiate, and I think a lot of the drivers, Jack, that have come from further back on the grid and has been able to safely negotiate whatever's gone on in front of them will be in a good position to take advantage of having a clean car that runs as it's supposed to for the final bits of the race. Oh, and that's Martin Dion.
It is indeed very wide out towards the edge of the circuit. Let's try and figure out what went off there. Through Copse Corner, was it just a mistake? Did he over-rotate the car on the entry, or was it mid-corner the car let go? It was mid-corner the car let go. As soon as he tried to get the car settled through the right-hander, it just switched on him and was pointing still the right way, just a little wider of where you'd expect him to be. Still continuing on without too much of an issue. Fastest lap of the race now, Gaston Messeroni, a 1 minute 58.755, so almost a second quicker on that previous lap than Matthew Forrest. 2 seconds clear, 2.1 seconds clear, 2.2 seconds clear. It seems like that Audi is really starting to pull away. Matthew Forrest sat there in second place. It was 2.1 seconds clear of Jorge Pinheiro. Then we get back to Nicolas Kocato and Chris Boland, who is definitely getting closer visually, so you can see that gap has come down. I've got a feeling Chris Boland is going for the podium.
Yeah, of course he'd love to do so, and he's going to be pressing for it. Absolutely so, and on home ground as well here. That would make perfect sense for him to really want to try and claim that podium spot, if possible. Pinheiro, though, has gotten through on Nicolas Kocato, so I wonder just how that happened. The SR Technique Lamborghini there looking good. Seems like it's been a clean one regardless. It'll be interesting to see if Cody Steek can make a return from his incident as well. Here we see it. Very nice move there on the inside. Really textbook stuff there from Jorge Pinheiro to take third place.
Yeah, good stuff from Jorge. Managed to, like I say, make it a nice clean move, nothing too out the way. And he has managed to not only make the move, Hasse, but more importantly, pull away. And that has allowed Chris Boland to get Nicolas Kocato into his grasp. Half a second separating the pair of them. A little further down the road, we've got Chris Pio applying the pressure to Matthew Maddox through Maggots and Beckett's, and then through Chapel on towards the hangar straight. You'd imagine even in these cars, you see it a lot in single-seaters, but even in these GTs, they rely so heavily upon downforce. The dirty air can't really benefit you through there. Down the straight, of course, get as close as you'd like, and it's really worked for Chris Pio here because there was a car running wide. I think that was Cohen Mulder that had to straight line the final part of Maggots and Beckett's and Chapel. Chris Pio, he gave it a look, managed to get past the recovering Cohen Mulder, but couldn't quite get past Matthew Maddox as of yet. On the brakes, there's going to be contact between the pair of them. Whether that was Matthew Maddox turning in or Chris Pio slightly later on the brakes, but somehow they're still both racing each other nose to tail. This is 4 cars separated by less than 3/4 of a second. Matthew Maddox, Chris Pio, Cohen Mulder and Martin de Jong. So it's 2 pros and 2 AMs all fighting through turns 1 and 2.
I was surprised there, Jack, to see that there wasn't any more damage to Chris Pio's Ford GT than was actually the case. He managed to sort of get away with that there. Cohen Mulder and Martin de Jong's going at it. Mulder's sort of on the grass. De Jong's going to be trying to sneak it up. It doesn't take much for it all to turn into tears. Nearly did so up ahead as well. Chris Pio is lining it up. That's a nice late braking move from Martin de Jong. He's going to have the inside here, though. The shortest line around, but it doesn't necessarily give you the best of exits. Up ahead, it seems Maddox is ever so slightly, just ever so slightly gaining on Chris Pio again there. And we have a battle that's becoming closer and closer, it seems as well, Jack, between Nicolas Kocato and Chris Boland, who, as you said, has been gaining on 4th place, and he's really been closing in over the last couple of laps here. It seems like Nicolas Kocato has been losing the pace. Maybe he's been overworking the tires or something, but he's certainly losing contact with Pinheiro now as well.
Yeah, he's definitely losing time, and I think visually you can see as well Chris Boland is losing time as well, trying to get past Nicolas Kocato, because Remco Barlow isn't too far adrift. Of course, Remco Barlow, one of the drivers that Chris Boland got past on the very first lap of the race, and he doesn't want to put in all this work trying to catch the cars in front just for it to come undone after losing time behind another car. At the moment, the lead gap 1.6 seconds. There is Gaston Messeroni. There is Matthew Maddox. Jorge Pinheiro not too far adrift. Then we get back to this battle. Nicolas Kocato and Chris Boland. Chris Boland all over his tail, definitely getting closer. 0.3 of a second separating the pair of them. So it's almost like 2 battles of 2 here, because Nicolas Kocato and Chris Boland are both going at it. As much as Remco Barlow would like to catch on to that duo in front, he can't really take his eyes off his rearview mirror, because Post Skulj is just sat behind. Through Copse Corner we go, using as much of the exit curb as possible, and look how close Chris Boland is. They're almost side by side, going through Maggots and Beckett's, and somehow they managed to continue on without too much of an issue. It looked like Chris Boland gave up a little bit of time just to make sure he could get through there, on towards the hangar straight. Now the draft assistance takes place. I know the BMW is very quick in a straight line as well, so keep an eye on Remco Barlow, who has got double draft assistance from the cars in front. And bearing in mind this is the battle for 4th place, imagine what it would be like when they're battling over the final step on the podium.
Yeah, it's Boland is really I think Chris Boland is sort of in a pinch here, because he wants to get away from Remco Barlow. I think he feels like he's able to pull away from the BMW behind, but at the moment there's an Audi in the way. Oh, and he's gone! And he's lost it! And he's not completely lost it. That is a recovery of some sort there, Jack Werrell. Beautiful save from Chris Boland to keep it in there somewhat. It could have been much worse, but he's found himself in 7th place instead of 5th, gone and lost 2 places. That was a dramatic moment, if ever I've seen one, Jack.
Yeah, how he kept that, I will never know. I'm assuming he just stamped on the brakes to try and lock everything up and almost square everything away again. Very, very good driving from Chris Boland. Could have been a lot worse, but bearing in mind he lost 2 places, after a moment like that, you'd be expecting to be returning to the pit lane. So Chris Boland, as much as I'm sure he's aggravated by that, he's got to take away the positives. That was a very good save, and it does mean he can get back to battling. It just means there's 2 more cars to get past than previously he would have expected. Craig Thompson still sat in 2nd place in class, still sat behind Orkan Kolak. Alfredo Trigarici with that damage on his car in 3rd place in class, 12th overall. Chris Roberts struggling for pace here this evening, down in 13th overall, rounding out the top 10 of the pros. Then it's the easy racing duo of Stuart Jacklin and Stephen Orrell, but easy racing seem to be the fan favourites this evening. So Sean Nicholson and Paul Phillips in chat, both egging on Easy Racing. And the pair of them not doing too badly tonight, Harris. 4th and 5th, good. No, Hasse, sorry. Easy Racing, 4th and 5th. That's good points. I think that's my age, Hasse. We'll go with that. We'll go with that.
Well, absolutely so, and it's certainly been improving from some of the results they've had earlier this season, and nice to see the fan base out there cheering along here. Jotze School has done a very, very steady job so far in the Porsche 911. Best Porsche by a fair margin so far. Seems like the Porsche might be that little bit off on the BOP at the moment, at least. That always it's sort of a pendulum that swings back and forward. Chris Boland, to me, doesn't look too phased by the moment before. He's kept his stride. We're on to the bumper of the Lamborghini. Looking for any opportunity he can find. Oh, he's gonna have to take the long way around the Porsche, and it looked to work out for a moment there. I thought that would have been some grip to find there all of a sudden, but of course, the long way around does give you a bit of extra distance to travel, and it's not easy to do it with enough speed to make it all the way around. By the way, a shout out to Jorge Pinheiro as well so far, Jack, for having driven a very good race. Someone is off up ahead. I think that's Kocato. Nicolas Kocato made the mistake there as well. And now Barlow's up into 4th place. And then Scourge, Boland, Kocato, and Pete Plastow in 8th. And I wonder what happened to the Argentine Audi driver. But it's certainly come the way of Remco Barlow. And he's even got a little bit of air between himself and Jotze's goal there, Jack, is another look at just what happened to Nicolas Kocato.
Yeah, so through Copse Corner once again, the tail end of the car starts to go. He snaps one way, very well corrected from Nicolas Kocato, albeit now 3 places down from where he wanted to be. And Remco Barlow, he's going to be sat there behind the wheel of that BMW. You're going to be thinking, is there something on the front of my car? Because every time I get behind somebody, it just slowly starts to over-rotate the rear. It happened to Chris Boland. It's now happened to Nicolas Kocato. Jorge Pinheiro will be looking in his rearview mirror after watching the Delta go, oh great, it's my turn next then, is it? Because every single time Remco Barlow gets close enough to start sizing up a move on the car in front, seems like they make a mistake. Clearly quite the daunting sight in a mirror is that BMW.
Yeah, indeed, it's a grand old machine, and it's gonna fill up a bit. Oh, there comes a late move from Boland. Not late enough though. It was a big old look indeed. He wants to get past on Scourge, though a great driver in his own right. Closer contact between the two side by side as they are. And I think Boland's got the nose ahead here, Jack. Indeed he has.
Yep, so a good move made. Happened before Copse Corner, and it was secured on the exit as soon as he realised that he had got by. It was just nice and easy to work his way through, and for the moment it looks like that run through Maggotts, Beckett's and Chapel has given him that buffer required to enter the hangar straight and not worry about the car behind reeling you back in on the draft. He's got 1.8 seconds to make up before he catches onto the coattails of Remco Barlow. A quick look at our leader, Gaston Maceroni, 2.7 seconds clear now of Matthew Forrest, slowly but surely pulling away. Jorge Pinheiro up 1 position from where he started. That has put him in 3rd place. Gaston Maceroni, fastest lap of the race, so 1 minute 58.418. He's only getting quicker. Of course, the cars will be getting lighter and lighter. Mandatory pit stop in this race, and we are well into the pit window now. So in a few moments' time, we should be expecting the pit lane to get very, very busy indeed. And then, of course, with open setup being part of it, we've then got a strategy to think about with the enforced pit stop. It's only going to get busier from here.
Yeah, absolutely so. And there's a bit of recovery going on here for both Martin de Jong and absolutely so. Also for Cody Steeg, 19th overall, the car behind the damaged Gabbiano Porsche. He sneaks past at the moment behind here. Martin Dion comes in for his pit stop. Lap 13 after roughly 25 minutes of racing. Sander Kaffa, who's nursing his Ferrari around. It's taken a hit here and there, it seems, and it's not a perfect race to be had. However, Robert van den Heuvel here in the beautiful Golf styled Golf livery it is actually, it has the logo and everything. Doing very well for himself. But I'll be interested to see just how much Cody Steeg can pull back from this one. And then I want to see if Craig Thompson had a pit stop.
Yes, he has.
Yes, he has had a pit stop, so that makes sense as well. The early pit stop for Craig Thompson. He must have gone for splitting the race into sort of 2 equal blocks. And he'll be doing what he can over the remainder of the race to push on through. Remind you, he was sitting there in 2nd place in the M class. And into the pits here, Jack, comes Remco Barlow.
Yes, he does indeed. So the first of the sort of top 10 to head into the pit lane. Very early call from himself. I've got to say, I do sort of agree with Craig Thompson's strategy. I know if I've ever got a mandatory pit stop, I will always pit at the midpoint if it suits me. Obviously, if I'm in a battle or something like that, I will try and pit as early as possible to try and minimise any sort of time loss. But if I can see up the road, there's nothing special going on, there's nothing really behind me, sure, split it in the middle. If I'm approaching traffic, I will, of course, pit to save me some time. But if I've got nice, clean air and there's nothing there, why not just keep running, keep enjoying the race, head into the pit stop as late as you can, and then you can be on fresher tyres, or even if it's just fuel, a slightly lighter car leaving the pit lane than everyone else would have had to deal with. So there's so many different little concepts that you've got to take into account when you're moulding your strategy around a race, and we see that a lot. And as a driver, without a full team behind you and a strategist and a mechanic and everything like that, a driver in iRacing, you're so busy because you're focusing on catching the car ahead, pulling away from the car behind, keeping it between the lines, managing your fuel, managing your tyres, deciding when to pit. It's a busy job behind the wheel of these cars. And with the championship, I'm sure, playing in the back of your mind as well, Hasse, it's quite stressful, I'm sure. But at the moment, Chris Boland, it just doesn't it looks like he's not stressed at all. He's just pushing forward, still sat there in 4th place. In theory, 5th. Of course, we have had, who have we had into the pit lane? Remco Barlow. So in theory, 5th place. But if he can keep running in this clean air, keep setting quick, clean, consistent laps, you never know where that could lead us at the end of the pit window, which I've got a feeling will be towards the end of this lap, because everybody else into the pit lane, Gaston Maceroni, Matthew Forrest, Jorge Pinheiro, Chris Boland and Jo Skulj also joining them in the pit lane, and I'm sure we will have Nicolas Kocato in as well. No, we don't.
No, Kocato must have been looking at saving a bit of fuel here and there, and maybe had it not been for his massive slidey moment there, he could have been in for his Schumacher lap now, but I'm not sure just how much he stands to gain upwards in the standings. Vinagre also with the late stop. Maceroni hits out of the pit lane ahead of Matthew Forrest. It seems, yeah, it is indeed Pinheiro, but then Chris Boland on Chris Roberts. Chris Boland, though, getting the jump there on Remco Barlow. Chris Roberts in between him, having yet to pit in the VRC Porsche. Good position gained there, though, for Chris Boland, who provisionally, virtually here, Jack, is up into 4th place.
He is indeed. Chris Roberts behind him, whilst he is still yet to pit. He will have the lighter car, and he's got every right to try and get past Chris Boland if he so requires. I'm not sure why he would want to, but of course, a position here could maybe help your teammate a little later on in the race, because if Chris Boland is maintaining this pace and still pushing forward, he does have a teammate just slightly further up the road in the way of Matthew Forrest. So if you can distract him and do what you can to take a couple of seconds out of his overall race time, I'm sure Matthew Forrest will be ever more grateful for his teammate. the through Copse corner we go, you can see Chris Roberts quite conservative through there, not really pushing the absolute limits of the car because there's no requirement to, but closing up on the 2/3 mark on the race. Almost half an hour gone, only 15 minutes of the race remaining, and still with a couple of drivers yet to pit. Nicolas Kocato surely in this lap, yes he is. Nino Vinagre should follow him through, and then the final driver yet to pit, as we previously saw, Chris Roberts. But then this is now when we see the real movers and shakers, and the people that have gained time, the drivers that have lost time, everything like that, because as soon as the drivers, everybody's been into the pit lane and then returned to the circuit, you're back to where you were, however, with a few swap positions.
Yeah, and it'll be interesting to see if Kocato stands to gain anything from this round of pit stops. He's stayed out that one lap longer. Certainly. He's going to fall down. The order isn't here, Jack, anyways. Pit exit there, and 7th, Vinagre 8th. Chris Roberts still in the pits. He's 9th. He's going to lose his position, I think, to Pete Plastow. And someone's in there with a heavily broken machine. And that's the Mercedes of... Oh, it's 29th. I think that's Savino Melilo's car standing in the pits. I think that was the car in the worst shape, basically, that we've seen for tonight so far.
Yeah, can't.
But anyway,
oh.
Yeah, there it is.
Van Sissler, yeah, heavy damage on that car. I'll try and figure out how he managed to attain all of that damage, because I'm sure it's not that easy to do. But smoking out the pit lane, and now everybody has completed their mandatory pit stop. We are back to racing and seeing how everybody can shape up. Now with, of course, a little bit more fuel back on board. And I know some drivers prefer a very light car, but in these Lamborghinis, and specifically the Porsche, the more fuel you put in it, it tends to be the opposite of what you'd expect. The faster it goes, because with the fuel tank being in the front of the Porsche, it gives you a lot more turning. The mid-corner, it gets quite sloppy, because of course it's got all that weight to lug around, but the initial turning, it tends to bite a bit more on the rubber. So we could see a couple of the Porsches work their way back up through the order, but at the moment, Gaston Messeroni, a faultless drive. Fingers crossed, no commentator's curse this evening, Hasse, but extending that lead margin, almost 2.9 seconds clear now of Season 2 champion Matthew Forrest, and then another fastest lap of the race.
Yeah, indeed. It's not always the case that the Porsche goes quicker on a heavy fuel load, but I will give you that it feels more stable. And certainly much more planted on turning and through the corners as well in general, and it also just loses more feeling with the road, with the fuel tank being at the front compared to so many of the other cars. Indeed, a brilliant drive so far from Gaston at the head of affairs, and certainly it's been a long time coming, though. It's something that's been building up to, generally with the form of virtual racing this season, and yeah, it's been great to see.
It has indeed. We've seen a lot of development, not only from the drivers, but from the teams overall. You see a couple of guys in here maybe have been an independent or a privateer, and they've just picked up on another independent, have gone, how about we form a team? How about we just get some teams, some team points, but don't take it too seriously and just go out and enjoy ourselves. And we're seeing those teams start at just a couple of mates and really start to build up and gain some traction in sim racing, and it's really helped. I thought he was about to over-rotate the car, but he did indeed, in a big way. Coming Mulder, did he find the Armco barrier? I fear he did, Hasse. Talk us through it.
Yeah, I think he just clipped a bit of grass coming into, yeah, or off of. That was a bit of a strange time for the car to break away, but a very, very heavy impact with the barrier there. That's probably going to be race over, I'm afraid, for Koen Mulder. Here is Pete Plastow in a tight squeeze battle there with Nuno Vinagre. Pete Plastow, who was looking so strong for the championship title last season and had it taken away with minutes to spare at the contact with the back marker there. That was certainly something that I think has... I don't know, as a driver, I think it's hard not to get get sort of taken in by events like that, and maybe you lose a bit of motivation to put in that extra bit of practice and all that stuff. Certainly, maybe it's the BOP that hasn't really helped anyways, because when we look at the standings, Jack, the Ferraris are a fair bit of way down, and looks to me as they've gone from having been quite on the strong side of the field to now being, well, sort of a, not to say a mediocre car, but on pace, just seems to have a hard time really keeping up with the Audis and the Lamborghinis in particular.
Yeah, it seems that way, and like you alluded to, Pete Plaster losing out on that opportunity to become Season 2 champion last season, and it is so tricky. It plays on the back of your mind, but that's the thing with racing and motorsport generally. You're always judged on the slightly poorer performances or the absolute standout performances, and something like that for Pete Plasto, it will play on the back of his mind, and he'll do everything he can to avoid it. And it's one of those things people remember, not necessarily for the right reason, but it is remembered, and you're only as good as your previous round. So if you have a really good round, you're expected to maintain that. If you don't have the greatest round, you're expected to improve, sort of thing. So it's definitely something to think about heading into the final half of the season very, very shortly. But at the moment, Nuno Vinagre, all of that is history, and he is focused on the tail end of Pete Plasto and focused on gaining another place to put him in towards the top 8. Closest cars on circuit is in fact these two. And at the moment, Hasse, it's calmed down, but every single time we say that, in about 5 minutes' time, we will end up with 4 or 5 drivers, nose to tail, fighting over what could be quite an important position.
Yeah, it's it seems to be that we don't really get many dull moments in this series, and yet again, it's been the case. Although we do see a little bit of spread here and there. Stuart Jacklin and Stephen Orrell have traded places further down the order. They're separated by about half a second, same distance as the 2 cars that we're following at the moment in the battle for 8th place. And then further up, it's Remco Barlow and I wonder if that's Skull and Remco Barlow relatively close to one another. I wouldn't be surprised to see the Porsche hanging on. But you'll have a hard time. You mentioned the straight line speed of the BMW. That is indeed a thing. And the Porsche, however, that's kind of on the other end of the spectrum. Not necessarily the straightest, the speediest of cars in a straight line. Very quick through the corners often. But driving the Porsche, you often find yourself in a bit of a tight squeeze when it comes to really being able to get the run on the car ahead, especially if it's a car that got those the long legs of the BMW. So that's an interesting one to follow. You can also see Scholes really closing in at the moment here through the twisty section. And Jack, of course, there's also a point to be made that if you've done a really good job of conserving your tires to this late stage of the race, that could give you that little bit of extra, little edge for a late push here at this point.
Yeah, definitely, and it's more than something to think about. Another driver diving into the pit lane there, Eideken Atterberg, in towards the pit lane for what will be his second time, so not 100% sure what's happened there. Maybe not taking enough fuel. Fastest lap of the race, Jorge Pinheiro, a 1 minute 57.987. That's a very fast lap indeed. The only driver this race to get into the 1 minute 57s. The fastest driver apart from him is our leader, Gaston Meseroni, who has set a fastest lap of a 1 minute 58.3, so 0.3 quicker than our race leader. And still with, 7 minutes of the race remaining and a 2-second gap to make up. If he consistently laps as quick as that, what was that? Now 0.6 quicker than Matthew Forrest. Like we said, Hasse, it could be a battle between a couple of drivers, and it could be a battle for quite a good position. How about the second step of the podium?
Yeah, indeed, and the leading car only 2.5 seconds up the road as well. That's by no means a done deal as well. So we'll have to see just how that develops here. Just under 6 minutes left of the race. Add a little to that for the white flag lap usually. Orkun Kolak still leads an AM. And that's with a gap of 3 seconds to Craig Thompson. And a further 6.5 seconds to Alfredo Tricarici, Stephen Orrell, and then Stuart Jacklin. All around within 15 seconds to top 5 in AM at the moment.
Yeah, so good stuff up and down the order, Hasse. At the moment, it's slowly starting to calm down again. 5 minutes of the race remaining. Closest drivers, Nuno Vinagre and Pete Plasto, still in the positions we left them. Still nose to tail, but for me, I'm going to put, as much as I'd love to give it to Pete Plasto, I'm going to put this the way of Nuno Vinagre. All race he's been quick, and the SR Technic cars throughout the season have been looking very, very quick as well. Jumping out at the very last minute, all the way around the outside. Can he find the grip on the dirty line? He will run wide. He manages to keep it on the circuit, and then in towards the braking area for the left-hander. The first corner of the chicane, tries not to use too much curb. It will be the double outside for the final couple of corners, and then once again for turn 1, Pete Plasto does manage to stay in front, but Nuno Vinagre back on the attack.
Yeah, but Vinagre goes a little too far on the inside as he goes for the overtaking move, or as he sort of goes to defend his earlier overtaking move. He could have moved much further over on Pete Plasto without any sort of risk of the two colliding. And having done so, could have carried more speed through the corner and probably kept his position. This time around, he's lost it yet again. And it's no gains made for Nuno Vinagre. So next time around, I think he needs to be that little bit more aggressive. And it's moving around. Of course, it's so hard to judge in sim racing. So it's not that I don't understand just why you would tend to leave plenty of space, because we've seen plenty of examples of the opposite, Jack. He's closing in yet again. He might just come with yet another strike. Not gonna be here, but he's certainly close. Porsches, it seems, Jack, quite strong here towards the late stage of the race.
Yeah, it seems like you mentioned the tyres can play a big part. Is it naturally that the Porsches are slightly better on the tyres throughout the race? I know Pete Plasto is somewhat out of his usual place. You'd expect him in towards the top 5, and as that meant that he's overdriving the car a little bit at certain points. There's so many different little aspects that can change your race, and especially a 45-minute race with an enforced pit stop, there's so many little things that you can do differently. Another go around the outside, this time for Nuno Vinagre. How about that, Hasse? You said he could have left more room. This time he almost made contact, but I've got to say, this is brilliant racing. We're heading on to what will be the penultimate lap of the race, and Nuno Vinagre still all over the tail of Pete Plasto. A little further down, we've got Stephen Orrell and Alfredo Tricarici getting nose to tail as well. And as per always, Hasse, the field opens up in the final couple of minutes of the race. Everybody, almost like a slinky, they all come slamming back together, and we end up with some brilliant battles.
Yeah, and Stephen Orrell has done a brilliant job of catching up to Alfredo Tricarici. Mind you, this is for a podium place in the AM class, so Orrell is seemingly at least in a very good position to maybe see if he can get his nose in on the Audi ahead. And then Chris Boland, Remco Barlow, and I think Jotze Skuld as well. There's not really striking distance though, isn't Jack? And with just over a lap left to go of the race, you wouldn't expect anything crazy to happen between the three here.
Now, as much as you want that position and you're thinking, oh, they're only there, they're not far away at all, it just takes you to be slightly overconfident or want it that little bit too much to either make a mistake and make some contact, or just generally make that mistake and force yourself out of these positions and end up way further down than you would have previously done. So you've got to be so patient and think, well, if I were Remco Barlow, I'm in 5th place, this is great points. As long as I keep turning these laps and focus on getting to the line, it's going to be a good point scoring round. And another position, whilst it would be more points, in the long term, it's definitely the best thing to do. But it looks like he's struggling potentially on those tyres, Hasse. He's missed a couple of apexes, struggling to get the car turned in and stop it from running wide, and now at this point he's under pressure from Jo Skulj, who is looking to work his way in towards the top 5 as we go on to the final lap of the race now. Is he going to go all the way around the outside? No, he isn't, but that has massively slowed down Remco Barlow as he had to take the title line in. How are we going to call this, Hasse? Because at the moment, I want to give it to Jo Skulj, but we know how difficult Remco Barlow is to overtake.
Yeah, and the BMW straight line speed isn't going to make it much easier to get around him as well. It just requires that even though Barlow might be suffering on his tires here, he just has to be mindful of it, brake that slight bit earlier, enter that a little bit slower so it doesn't compromise his run down the following bit of the track. But so far it does seem like Barlow could just be holding on to it. We've heard it before, Jack. Catching up is one thing, and getting past is quite another, and that seems to be the case yet again here.
Yes, it is indeed. Under pressure for the second step of the podium, Hasse.
Oh,
Matthew Forrest. Yeah,
Pinheiros.
exactly. We said it a couple of laps ago, saying he's going very quick indeed, and he has consistently been lapping quicker than everybody else out on circuit. And whilst we are on the run up towards the final couple of corners, Gaston Maceroni has clearly just decided to take a nice easy in lap, only 9/10 away from Matthew Forrest. But Jorge Pinheiro looking to the outside now. Matthew Forrest is going to be a formidable force to get past in the final sector of the final lap of the race. But Gaston Maceroni, from lights to flag, it seems he will be able to do that through the final couple of corners now. So round 4 of Season 3 of the GT Masters is going to go the way of Gaston Maceroni. So the Argentine Virtua Racing Audi driver crosses the line to take the win here this evening. Matthew Forrest just about fends off Jorge Pinheiro for the podium to finish in second place. Jorge Pinheiro himself finishes in third. Chris Boland, a brilliant drive, up 3 places to finish in fourth. Over the moon with that one. Remco Barlow to the line, does manage to maintain that 5th place. Jo Skulj finishes in 6th. Nicolas Kocato in 7th place through the final corner now. And then it's Pete Plasto who does manage to outrace Nuno Vinagre to the line to finish in 8th. Nuno Vinagre in the SR Technic Porsche crosses the line to finish in 9th. And Chris Roberts, a night of what could have been for him, I think, but still solid points to round out the top 10. And then Hasse, just behind our AM class leader, Håkan Kolak, make that our AM class winner.
Absolutely a very good drive from the Turk in the 666 Lambo, ahead of Craig Thompson. It's done the same for VRC, and then it's Alfredo Tricarici coming home for 4th place in the M class, as I think Stephen Orrell
took it in the pit lane.
Make it past. He took it in the pit lane, just like Schumacher, and that was at Silverstone as well, wasn't it?
Yeah, indeed.
I think so as well. I think that if that's not a reference to that particular incident, I don't know what that is. And that's all well done. That's pretty amusing, to be honest. Here's Matthew Mannix. He's coming home for the checkered flag. So is Sander Kaffer, 22nd overall. There's Mannix. That's going to be 20th. So Sander Kaffer must have lost a fair bit of time out there. Matthew Maddox crosses the line there, and that, I think, Jack, is the final car that had left and had yet to finish the race. And there we are. Pro class results on screen indeed. Gaston Maceroni takes another win for Virtua Racing. What a strong display of force. Lights to flag indeed, but it did become close in the end. I wonder if he was low on fuel there. Matthew Forrest second there for VRC, ahead of Jorge Pinheiro from SR Technique. Then Chris Boland for IFE Motorsports, and Remco Barlow for Block It Like It's Hot, rounding off the top 5. Then Jose Skulj, Nicolas Kocato, Pete Plasto, Nuno Vinagre, and Chris Roberts in the Pro top 10, with Martin Young and Cohen Mulder being the especially unlucky one out with this big incident, as we saw.
Yeah, such a shame for Cohen Mulder. Thank you very much, Hasse, for running us through the pro results. The AM results are as follows. Håkan Kolak, 6 seconds clear, your winner in the 666 Lamborghini. Craig Thompson, a a superb podium, finishing in second place. Great haul of points for himself, ahead of Alfredo Tricarici. Then it's Stuart Jacklin and Ari Sherwood to start the trio of Apex Tech cars, finishing in 5th, 6th and 7th. Ari Sherwood, Chris Pio and Cody Steig. Then it's Stephen Orrell, Matthew Maddox, and Robert van den Heuvel finishing in 10th place. Followed then by Sander Kaffer, Giambattista Giacetti recovering from a lap 1 incident in his Team Gabbiano Ferrari. Then it's Lee Tucker, Aydoğan Ataberk, and in towards the retirement of Sandro Orsini, Gaston Vori, Matt Sisler and Savino Melillo, finishing in 18th place. I think we only have one more. No, that is everybody. So only 18 drivers in the AM class this evening. But I've got to say, a brilliant race nonetheless. It's every week. It just outdoes itself. It outdoes the previous week. You finish off a night like this and you go, how can it get better? How can it get better? So roll on round 5 and it will be even better, Hasse. And to round out the evening, we're going to do it in the usual fashion. We've got some interviews. Let's see who we can bring in. We've got Matt Forrest or Orkan Kolak. I'll let you choose and I'll let you take the first interview.
Well, let's bring in Orkan Kolak, our AM class winner. It's the first time we have him in for an interview, so it'll be nice to hear his voice here in the booth as we're joined by the racetrack notes.app driver here. Orkan, welcome to the booth. What a brilliant race for you tonight. First win, I think, of the season in the class for you, and that must be very satisfying.
Yeah, hi lads. I don't know what I'm doing here. I didn't expect this. I didn't even realize I was P1 until like, I don't know, like the last 10-15 minutes or so. So it's surprising, but very welcome.
And in a race like this, certainly it turned out to be a race of attrition where one thing is keeping pace, but quite another was keeping the car whole and in one piece. You managed to do both. Was there any particular challenges you saw there in the traffic of the field in the early parts of the race?
Yeah. I mean, I have to admit I was a bit lucky. Like I avoided 2 possible wreckages, and I think my competition was caught in it. So I managed to survive that, but I really enjoyed the track anyways. Like my quali was not the best. I could have done better. But yeah, after the wreckages, it was all fun and keeping the car safe. I was pressured from behind for a while, but managed to keep it together.
And with the prospects of your first class win in the back here, does that leave you wanting more of that sweet tasting victory for the rest of the season?
Yeah, don't even. I don't even wanna think about that now. Just maybe let's go race by race. I'm not a very competitive person, as you might suspect. I didn't even know that you guys were doing interviews with the amateur class. So maybe I should start to think more competitively. There are some good tracks that I think on the schedule that I can be good at, and hopefully I'll speak with you guys again.
Well, thank you, Orkan, for joining us in the booth. Congratulations on a brilliant race and a really good result on your part there. And before we leave you, is there anyone you'd like to give a thanks on or a shout out to while you're with us on the air?
Yes, good point. So I like to thank my setup maker, Kartal. He has done a brilliant job. I want to thank my teammates, Osman and Aydıncan. I think they really helped me out with my pace. And I like to thank nobody else but you guys. You guys are doing an amazing job as well. So thanks for keeping this going. Thanks, guys.
Well, thank you, Orkan, for the sweet and kind words. It's much appreciated. Hope to see you again in the comms booth for another interview after one of these days.
Yep. Fingers crossed, man. All right. Cheers, lads. Thank you.
So indeed, Jack, Orkan Kolak, a happy class winner in the AM class. Beautiful indeed. That leaves you and Matt Forrest with a bit of talking to do.
It does indeed. Matthew Forrest, welcome to the commentary box. Second place, albeit just. You were, I'm not sure whether that was Gaston Maceroni taking a nice slow closing lap of the race, or you were just absolutely on rails with your Pinheiro hunting you down on the final lap of the race. But It was getting quite tense towards the towards the latter stages of the race. Talk us through how you felt.
Oh, it's good to be back on the podium, to be honest. Gaston was in a class of his own today. He was just toying with me throughout the whole race. Every time I put a quick lap in, he just went a little bit quicker. And I don't know where Pinheiro came from. It was 4 seconds behind, 5 seconds behind, and then all of a sudden, I caught. I think it was Sandro Orsini, I think, into Maggots and Beckett's going into the last but one lap, and he was right behind me going into the last lap, and it was just a case of defend at that point.
Well, it definitely worked, and like you say, nice to see you back on the podium. A good haul of points as well. Heading into Silverstone, it's quite an open, quite a fast circuit, albeit with its tight and technical sections. Is it a circuit you like, a circuit you hate? How did you feel on the way in?
I thought I was really quick, if I'm being honest. I thought I'd got this in the bag, and then on Friday, Friday or Saturday, one of the practices, Friday practice, I thought, yeah, it's good. And then at the beginning of this practice, Gaston joined and put in a 57 at 8 or 50, and I was like, oh god, here we go.
Oh yeah, a formidable force indeed. But that means again the Audis and the Lamborghinis very, very dominant. Indeed, it's clearly the platform that definitely works throughout this season. We head to Red Bull Ring in 2 weeks' time. Is that again a circuit you like, a circuit you're fond of, and do you think more importantly the car will marry up quite nicely?
No idea. How will work or not. The Audis I think, are slightly quicker. This year's been a lot more difficult this season compared to other seasons. Last season, the Nicolas and Gaston have both put in, are both in the Audis, and they are both rapid. I don't know what happened to Nicolas during the race, but A1 ring, it's a Red Bull ring. It's I've only ever driven it, raced it once, and I was in a Porsche Cup a couple of weeks back. So we'll see what happens.
Well, lots to look forward to indeed. Congratulations from myself and Hasse this evening for getting back on the podium again and a good haul of points. And like you say, we'll see you in 2 weeks' time at Red Bull Ring. But before we let you go, anybody you'd like to thank or shout out?
Obviously, the team worked hard this week. Practicing, been helping each other out. Obviously, yourselves, always good broadcasting. And I can't wait to watch this back. And everybody else, all the back markers, good racing today.
Great stuff. Thank you very much for joining us in the commentary box. Congratulations once again, and we'll see you in 2 weeks' time.
Cheers.
Cheers, mate. Matthew Forrest there in for an interview, and it gets to this point every night, Hasse. As much as at the start you're thinking, here we go, almost an hour and a half worth of racing and content and everything, lots to look forward to, it just flies by. And an hour and a half later, we're sat here thinking, can we do it again? I'm sure I would be able to, but unfortunately, the drivers have long gone. They've put their cars into the trailers and already started driving home because it's only the 2 interviews we had tonight. But give us your final closing statements.
Another great race from a great series, and it just lives up to its own high standards of what we expect to see in here. And it's a season that keeps on evolving, and I think a championship fight that is not just a 2 or 3 horse race for this season, but that could go the course of so many of the drivers that finish within the sort of the top 5 tonight. All of them you would rate as being contenders for the title. That just makes it all the more interesting to follow, and that's what keeps it so great indeed. So as I expected coming into it, another great race, but I'm happy to see that I think we got the show we were expecting yet again here at Silverstone.
Yeah, another great night of racing. And like we alluded to earlier, join us in 2 weeks' time as we head to the Red Bull Ring for another brilliant evening of racing. And going off tonight, it's only going to get closer. And as Hasse alluded to, it's the championship we've got to slowly start to think about. Next round will be the halfway point in the season. So this is when we can slowly start to size up the drivers that will be either making up for a few previous rounds or hoping that they can continue on with some good point scoring rounds. But lots to look forward to. That's all in 2 weeks' time. And we've got a couple of practice sessions and, of course, then back to the race session between then and now. But thank you very much for joining us here on the Virtual Racing Compound channel. Thank you very much to our sponsors, SIMRACER Coin and Grip Engineering. You have been watching round 4 of the Sunday GT Masters, and we will see you in 2 weeks' time. Thank you. Bye-bye.